At dinner, my nephew looked at my 7-year-old son and said, "Only grandma's real grandkids get food first." No one corrected him. My mom even smiled. I took my kid's hand, got in the car and drove off. That night my dad texted, "Rent's due." I replied, "Then start paying it." And the group chat exploded. I already had a bad feeling on the way there. It was my parents' 35th anniversary dinner, and of course they insisted it be at that overpriced steakhouse downtown. Formal clothes, fake smiles, forced conversation. My son Elijah had just turned 7. He wanted to wear his Spider-Man shoes. I let him. I knew it'd probably annoy my mother. We weren't even fully through the door before I saw how the table was arranged. Long and rectangular, my parents in the center, Vanessa and her husband on the right side, and their son Logan at the end. He had this special seat, the one my parents always gave to the guest of honor, or in Logan's case, their favorite person on the planet. That left the far end for me and Elijah. As usual, no one stood to greet us. No one said they were glad we came. I kissed my dad on the cheek. My mom said something about Elijah getting so big. Logan didn't look up from his iPad. The waiter came, took drink orders and passed out menus. I ordered Elijah a lemonade. He quietly asked if he could have the chicken tenders. Then it happened. Logan finally looked up, glanced straight at Elijah and said loud and clear, "Only grandma's real grandkids get food first." He said it like it was a fact. A rule. Like he was explaining how gravity worked. No one said a word. Not Vanessa, who was pretending to look through the menu. Not her husband, who just raised his eyebrows at his wine glass like it was suddenly fascinating. My dad didn't even blink. And my mom? She smiled. That tiny, smug smile she always used when Logan said something she thought was clever. I looked at Elijah. He wasn't crying, but I could see it all hit at once. Confusion, shame, hurt, and something worse. He wasn't even surprised. It had happened before. Not those exact words, but the message behind them. And no one corrected Logan, because they all believed it deep down. I stood up, took Elijah's hand, pulled a few 20s out of my wallet and set them by my untouched water glass. My mom asked where I was going, but I didn't answer. My dad watched me, then turned back to the menu. We walked out in silence. In the car, Elijah asked if we were in trouble. I told him no. I told him we didn't belong somewhere that made him feel small. That being related didn't mean being respected. He nodded. He always understood more than he should have to. We got burgers on the way home. He was asleep before I finished cleaning up the kitchen. At 9:30 I got a text from my dad. Just 3 words. "Rent's due." No hello. No, "Everything okay?" Just a reminder that they still saw me as the ATM. I'd been covering Vanessa's rent for over a year. Quietly. They always said she was just going through a rough patch, while ignoring how long I'd been the one patching everything up. I was the one who made sure her kids had Christmas presents. I was the one who paid for their broken fridge. And now I was supposed to sit there while her son humiliated mine? I stared at the message for a minute. Then I replied, "Then start paying it." The silence lasted exactly 10 minutes. Then the group chat exploded. My mom, "What are you talking about?" Vanessa, "Scarlett, what the hell?" My dad, "Are you really doing this tonight?" Vanessa's husband, "Wow. Real classy, Scarlett." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. They didn't realize it yet, but this wasn't just me being dramatic. It was me finally waking up. And that was only the beginning. By morning, the group chat had more than 40 unread messages. I didn't open a single one. I made pancakes for Elijah, packed his lunch and took him to school like it was any other day. But something in me had snapped. Not loudly. Not with fire. Quietly. The way a branch gives under pressure it's been holding for too long. I knew I wasn't going back to who I was the night before. Around noon, Vanessa called. I let it ring until it stopped. Then came the text. "Are you seriously refusing to pay the rent? You know we can't cover it this month." I left it on read. 5 minutes later. "This is over Logan's joke? He's a kid, Scarlett. Grow up." I could have reminded her it wasn't the first time. That Logan had made comments like that before. About Elijah not looking like us. About how he wasn't a real cousin. I'd brought it up every time. And every time Vanessa had brushed it off. My parents had changed the subject. Her husband had pretended not to hear. And Logan? He learned that no one would stop him. That it was okay to humiliate my son as long as it came with a smirk and a shrug. This wasn't over a joke. This was about years of watching my kid get hurt and being told I was imagining it. At 3:07 my mom called. I answered. She didn't ask how Elijah was. Didn't ask why I left dinner. She went straight into lecture mode, talking about how I embarrassed the family, how Vanessa was shaken, and how my reaction was extreme. I waited until she paused to breathe, then told her clearly, I wasn't paying their bills anymore. Not for Vanessa, not for anyone. Not one more dollar. She said I was punishing the wrong people. I didn't even respond. I just ended the call. That night, Elijah sat curled up with me on the couch watching some cartoon he half followed. Halfway through, he looked up and asked, "Why does Logan hate me?" I told him the truth, or the version he could handle. That sometimes people say mean things because they feel small inside. That it had nothing to do with him. He nodded slowly. But I could see the question still sitting heavy in his mind. Stuck with me too. 3 days passed. No one from my family showed up. Then Vanessa finally texted me again. This time it was a screenshot of her rent notice. A bright red final warning stamped across the top. No words. Just the screenshot. Then a minute later. "I hope you're happy. You just made your nephew homeless." There it was. The guilt trip. The loaded statement meant to make me feel responsible. Me, not the 2 adults who had their names on the lease. Me, not the parents who let Logan grow up thinking cruelty was clever. It was always going to be me. Except this time it wasn't. I didn't reply. But I opened my laptop. I spent the next hour organizing old receipts, bank transfers, screenshots of conversations where Vanessa begged me not to tell our parents about her debts. Years of proof that I'd been holding up more than just one family. I saved it all into a folder on my desktop. Not because I planned to use it. Just to remind myself of the truth if I ever started feeling guilty again. That weekend I skipped Sunday dinner. My mom sent a single question mark to the group chat. Then my dad followed up with a thumbs up emoji. That was their way of playing it cool, acting like I hadn't rattled anything. I didn't answer. I took Elijah to the park instead. He climbed the monkey bars, laughing. For the first time in weeks I saw him relaxed. Really relaxed. But the silence didn't last long. Sunday night I got a text from Vanessa's husband. He'd never messaged me before. It was awkwardly formal at first. Something about how they'd addressed Logan's behavior and understood my frustration. Then came the pivot. "But you know we can't afford rent without your help. It's not fair to take it out on the kids." I sat with that message for a while. Because it was finally happening. For years I'd been the cushion. The emergency backup. The one they all leaned on so they didn't have to lean on each other. And now I'd stepped out of the picture. Just like that, the whole structure started to wobble. And the truth was, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. By the end of the week they realized I wasn't bluffing. The silence I gave them wasn't angry. It wasn't emotional. It was just complete. No answers, no follow-ups, no explanations. And they didn't know what to do with that. They were used to me folding after a day or two. A guilt trip here, a phone call there, and I'd be covering Vanessa's rent again, or picking up the pieces from her latest disaster. But not this time. Vanessa cracked first. She texted late on a Thursday night. A long paragraph, a mess of excuses and half apologies. She said Logan didn't mean what he said. That he was just a kid. That he was probably acting out because things at home were tense. That Elijah should come over sometime, maybe for a playdate to smooth things over. Then came the part she couldn't help adding. Mom and Dad are getting really stressed. It's all falling on them now. And it's just not fair. That was the part one read twice. Because it was finally true. For the first time in years it wasn't falling on me. See, my parents had always hovered on the edge of responsibility. Involved enough to judge, never enough to sacrifice. But now I was out. Officially. And everything they'd managed to avoid, the rent, the bills, the stress of Vanessa's chaos, landed squarely in their laps. They didn't want it, but they had no choice. The next few days were quiet again. Then Vanessa lost her job. Fired without warning. Corporate restructuring. No severance. No cushion. Just a dead paycheck and an eviction notice looming. Her husband lasted a little longer. 1 week to be exact. Then came the layoffs at his company. Same story. Suddenly both of them were jobless. No income. No savings. And no Scarlett to call. That's when my parents stepped in. For the first time in years they had to actually help. But here's the catch, they couldn't afford it. They liked pretending they were wealthy, but it was all image. Golf memberships, brunches, vacations they could barely pay off. They were the kind of people who'd spend $200 on dinner and ignore a $400 utility bill. So when the $1,900 rent hit them, it stung. I got a call from my mom that night. She opened with a shaky voice and tried to sound casual, but I could hear the tension underneath. She said Vanessa was going through a rough time and that the family needed to stick together. I said no. She paused, then said it was just for this month, that she and Dad were stretched thin and I knew how hard things were right now. I said no again. She tried to guilt me, saying Elijah would want to help his cousin if he knew what was going on. I didn't even respond to that one. Just ended the call. That night, Vanessa sent me another text. No pretense this time. Just a screenshot of her eviction notice and a single sentence beneath it. "You're really going to let us go homeless?" "Oh, I wasn't letting anyone go homeless. I just wasn't going to pay to keep people afloat while they kicked my kid in the face on the way up. I had done my time. I'd bailed them out more times than I could count. Covered rent, paid utilities, even bought school supplies for Logan when Vanessa forgot. I did it all quietly without ever asking for anything back, except for them to treat Elijah with decency. And they couldn't even do that. So now for once they had to figure it out without me. I didn't respond, but I knew what was happening behind the scenes. My parents paid Vanessa's rent that month. It nearly broke them. I could tell from the little things. My mom canceled her pedicure appointment. My dad skipped his golf weekend. They suddenly weren't posting about their anniversary trip to Lake Tahoe anymore. Their vacation photos dried up. The facade was cracking. Then came the shift. My dad, who never texted unless he was annoyed, sent me a message out of nowhere. This situation isn't sustainable. That was it. No greeting. No question. Just a statement like it was my problem. I ignored it. Then Vanessa's husband texted me. It was almost funny. He tried to play peacemaker, said Logan felt bad he didn't, that it wasn't about money it was, and that everyone was feeling the pressure right now. Then the kicker. You were always the responsible one. We thought you'd understand. That was their biggest mistake. They thought my silence all those years meant I was okay with it. That I liked being the one who fixed things. That I had no breaking point. They were wrong. Because now they were the ones cleaning up the mess. They were the ones choosing between groceries and rent. They were the ones holding up Vanessa's life while their own slowly crumbled. And me, I was fine. I paid my bills. Took Elijah to the park. Ate dinner in peace. I finally had the one thing they could never give me when I was tied to their chaos. Freedom. Things got quiet for about 2 weeks. Too quiet. No frantic texts. No guilt bombs. No dramatic phone calls. It almost felt like they'd accepted it. I should have known better. My family never adapted. They maneuvered. The unexpected part came from Logan. Not directly. Through Elijah. One afternoon after school, Elijah told me a boy had said hi to him at pickup. He hesitated before saying the name. Logan. Apparently, my sister had switched schools temporarily because they were closer to Grandma and Grandpa now. That was news to me. I hadn't been told they'd moved him, or that they were suddenly spending every weekday at my parents' house. Elijah said Logan told him something strange. That Grandma said Scarlett was mad because she hated her family. That Scarlett didn't want Logan to eat anymore. That Scarlett took money meant for him. Elijah asked me if that was true. That's when I realized what they were doing. They weren't just panicking. They were rewriting the story. That night I finally opened the group chat. What I saw made my stomach drop. Screenshots. Messages I'd never sent. Vanessa claiming I'd promised to help no matter what. My mom saying she was worried about my mental health spiral. My dad hinting I was being reckless with money. They weren't asking for help anymore. They were setting me up to look unstable. And then the real surprise hit. I got a voicemail from an unknown number. It was polite. Professional. A woman introducing herself as someone from a local family services office. She said my name had come up in a conversation regarding financial disputes and child welfare concerns. She wanted to clarify a few things. I didn't panic. I laughed. Once. Out loud. As now I understood. They weren't just losing control. They were desperate enough to cross a line they couldn't uncross. I called the number back. Cleared everything up in 10 minutes. Explained that I didn't live with them. Didn't share finances. Didn't support them anymore by choice. Offered documentation. Receipts. Bank records. Timelines. The woman thanked me and said that was all she needed. 2 hours later my dad called. He didn't yell. He didn't lecture. He sounded scared. He asked me if I'd spoken to anyone official. I said yes. He went silent. Then he said Vanessa had only been asking for advice, and things had gotten misunderstood. I told him calmly that lying about me crossed a boundary they couldn't walk back from. That's when he finally admitted the truth. They were drowning. Paying $1,900 a month had wrecked their budget. They were behind on their own bills. Credit cards maxed. Savings gone. The travel plans they cared so much about were canceled. And Logan wasn't acting like the golden grandson anymore. He was angry, acting out, saying cruel things at school. Teachers had noticed. And suddenly the behavior they'd laughed off for years wasn't cute anymore. My mom called after that, crying, saying they never meant for things to go this far. That they thought I'd cool down. That they didn't realize how much I'd been doing. That was the most unexpected part of all. They finally said it. They didn't realize. I told her I believed her. And that didn't change anything. Because the damage was already done. They tried to turn my own child against me. And that was something I wouldn't forget. The week Vanessa moved into my parents' house, the group chat finally died. Not a word from anyone. No fake politeness, no one pretending things were getting better. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels like everyone's waiting for someone else to make the next move. Like the last pieces of a crumbling structure frozen right before they hit the ground. I didn't reach out. I already knew what was happening. They were all under the same roof now, Vanessa, her husband Logan, and my parents. 5 people who had spent years building a house of mirrors where I was the villain and Logan was the son. Now they were stuck together with nowhere to hide from what they'd made. I found out through a mutual friend that Vanessa had barely unpacked. That Logan was having outbursts at school and at home. That my parents were constantly fighting, about bills, groceries, noise, everything. Their home wasn't a sanctuary anymore. It was a holding cell. A week in, my dad texted me out of nowhere. "You have a minute?" I ignored it. The next day he sent another. "Things are getting out of hand. Can we talk?" Still no reply. It wasn't revenge. I just didn't trust myself to talk yet without saying something that would break things permanently. I wasn't interested in hearing how tired they were. I'd been tired for years and they didn't care then. I had no interest in coaching them through a situation they created by pretending mine wasn't real. But then Elijah came home from school with a question. He asked why Logan had said they might not have Christmas this year. I froze. It was early November. Too early for Christmas talk. But apparently Logan had told Elijah, during a quick conversation at pickup, that Santa might skip their house this year because everyone's broke now. I asked Elijah what else Logan said. He told me Logan cried. Not at school, at his grandparents' house. That he was mad all the time now. That he kept saying it wasn't fair. That nobody liked him anymore. Elijah wasn't gloating. He looked almost guilty. That's when I realized the situation had shifted again. It wasn't just falling apart, it had fallen. They were all in survival mode now. The fantasy was over. And even Logan, who had been at the top of the little pyramid for so long, had nowhere left to look down from. The next day I met my dad at a diner. Neutral territory. No family photos, no childhood memories. Just coffee and cold toast. He looked like someone who hadn't been sleeping. And for the first time in my life he didn't open with a lecture or a guilt trip. He asked me how Elijah was doing. And he listened. Then he said it. Not a half apology. Not a passive, "I guess we didn't realize." He actually said the words. "We failed you." He admitted they enabled Vanessa. That they didn't want to deal with the mess, so they handed it off to me. That when Logan said cruel things, they looked away because they didn't want to start drama. That they convinced themselves I could handle everything so they didn't have to. Then he admitted what it had cost them. My mom had dipped into her retirement fund. My dad had missed a credit card payment for the first time in 20 years. They were paying for Logan's school supplies, meals, doctor visits, rent. All of it. And Vanessa? She still wasn't working. Neither was her husband. And every time my parents tried to push, it turned into a screaming match. They weren't a family now. They were roommates who couldn't afford each other. Then came the line that really hit. Now we're the ones carrying it and we finally understand how heavy it was. We sat in silence for a while. He asked if I could ever forgive them. I told him I didn't have an answer yet. That it wasn't just about the bills or the years of emotional manipulation. It was about Elijah. About how they'd let him be humiliated by a child they worshipped. How they smiled while it happened. How they said nothing. Did nothing. And then expected me to smile through it. My dad nodded. Said my mom wanted to talk too. That they were both ashamed. That it was all unraveling faster than they expected. And that for the first time they were scared. I told him I wasn't going to fix it. Not this time. Not ever again. He said he understood. Said they weren't asking me to. They just wanted me to know they saw it now. All of it. I paid my half of the check. He didn't argue. On the way out he said quietly, "We'll do better. If you ever give us the chance." I didn't promise anything. But I didn't slam the door shut either. Sometimes it's not about whether people deserve a second chance. It's about whether they know what to do with it. Thanksgiving came. No invite. Not a word from my mom, not a text from Vanessa, nothing in the group chat. I knew they had a gathering anyway, they always did. But this year I wasn't a part of it. No plate saved for Elijah. No follow-up call pretending it was some innocent oversight. I wasn't excluded. I had removed myself and for the first time they didn't chase me. Elijah and I had a quiet day at home. Just the two of us. He helped me mash potatoes, we made a store-bought pie taste homemade with too much cinnamon, and we watched old cartoons until he fell asleep on the couch. The silence didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. A few days later my mom texted. Not about the holiday. Not about Vanessa. Just one sentence. "Can we talk?" I agreed, but this time on my terms. I told her she could come over. Alone. I didn't want to be pulled into another round of, "let's just move on," or some shared apology where I was supposed to forget things ever happened. She showed up on a Sunday afternoon. No makeup. No dramatic sighs. She looked older too, not from age but from weight. Not physical, emotional. The kind people carry when denial has finally caught up with reality. She brought nothing. Not even an apology cake, which was weirdly reassuring. We sat in the living room. Elijah was out with a friend's family. I didn't offer her coffee. I just waited. She started slow. Said things at home had gotten worse. That Vanessa's husband had walked out a few days before. Gone without a word. Left a note saying he needed space. No one had heard from him since. Vanessa was barely speaking. Logan was out of control. Shouting, refusing to go to school, breaking things. And my parents were in deep. Financially, emotionally, everything. Their retirement? On hold. Their savings? Gone. Then she said something that hit different. I don't want you to feel good about this. I don't want you to look at us struggling and think, now they get it. But I also won't lie. We do. We get it now. She said she understood how long I'd been alone in that role. The fixer. The quiet one. The one who never made trouble, who just took whatever scraps of support were offered and turned them into survival. She said she used to think that silence meant strength. But now she saw it for what it was, exhaustion. She cried quietly. Not the loud kind meant to provoke sympathy. Just silent tears that came when she talked about Elijah. She said she thought about what he must have felt sitting at that dinner. Being told he wasn't real. And how no one stood up for him. It's haunted me, she said. Not just because we let it happen. But because we all knew exactly what Logan meant. And we chose not to stop it. That was the first time she didn't pretend it had been a misunderstanding. She asked me if there was a way forward. Not back, forward. I told her maybe. But not fast. I told her I wasn't going to be convenient again. I wasn't going to be the fallback plan, the emotional babysitter, the extra wallet in the family group chat. If they wanted to have me in their lives, they had to come with respect. Real respect, not just words but choices. He said they would try. That she would try. I told her I believed she meant it. I also told her I wouldn't forget how long it took. Before she left, she asked if she could see Elijah soon. I said maybe. That I'd ask him first. Because that's how it would work now. No more decisions made over his head. If he wanted distance, he'd have it. If he wanted to talk, they'd earn it. She nodded. No pushback. Just a quiet goodbye. I closed the door after she left. No tears. No dramatic moment of release. Just a strange, settled kind of peace. The kind that comes when you know you've survived something and you don't need to fight it anymore. Weeks passed. My mom started texting occasionally. Nothing too heavy. Just checking in. My dad even sent a photo once. Elijah and Logan, both as toddlers, playing on the floor of their old living room. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. But I saved the picture. Christmas came. They sent a gift for Elijah. Not expensive, not flashy. Just a handwritten card, signed by both of them, saying they missed him and were proud of the person he was becoming. I let him decide if he wanted to open it. He did. He smiled, then went back to playing. He wasn't holding on to the past the way I was. And maybe that's what forgiveness starts with. Not forgetting, not excusing, but just letting the past be where it is. Behind us. So when people ask if I forgave them, I say this. They're learning. I'm healing. Time will tell. And for now, that's enough.